Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second episode of Bounty Cast with myself, Josh, aka TrapAllen, for those who care, and my good friend over here, Zach, aka Warboard987.
Boo boo boo.
In this episode of the Bounty Cast, we're going to be doing a season in review of Mandalorian Season 2.
Hell yeah.
I have up on my screen, you're not going to be able to see it, but just imagine you can. I have the, not track list, but the episode list over here. We're going to go through every episode, kind of talk about the pros, the cons, maybe discuss, people directing it, just maybe those kind
Yeah.
of things.
Just kind of break them down.
At the end, we're kind of look at the, which episode, did we not really care for, and which episode was the best in our mind. And obviously, I feel like most people are going to agree, and let's just get this out of the way now.
Yeah, let's get it
I'm
out.
going to wait till the end. We were both going to say the best episode was episode 16, last episode.
Pretty obvious.
When your boy Luke Skywalker strolls in there with R2-D2 and wreaks havoc. So, I mean, honestly, so what we're going to do is we're going to pick our second favorite episode, and kind of we can discuss that and
Yep.
maybe draw some conclusions, maybe to some of the, or draw some comparisons to or connections to some of the other shows, and maybe show why Jon Favreau even might be saving the newer movies that no one wants to talk about or care about. But
That's
anyways,
true.
we will jump right into it. The first episode, known as Chapter 9, The Marshal, which is where Din Djarin goes to I believe, where's that? It's not Tatooine.
It's Mos Pelgo. It's on.
Mos Pelgo.
It is on Tatooine.
Is it in the same Is it like the same solar system?
No, it's straight up.
You're right.
It's on
it's
Tatooine.
The Forgotten City, because there's Mos Eisley,
Yep.
and then Mos Pelgo is the one that's kind of like forgotten about. Yes, so I was right. Thank God. This paragraph's long, so trust me, folks. I can't be reading too long.
Not much of a speed reader.
Yeah, right. And so, and also in this episode, they were helping the Sand People, attack and end that Crate Dragon.
Real
Crate
menace.
Dragon was really cool design and everything, especially with the special effects nowadays. I mean, when you got that Disney budget, you can do almost anything now.
A little bit more freedom.
This is a little off topic, but but for anybody who hasn't seen it, but they did the behind the scenes and they showed how they film it, and like the whole studio's like a giant like cylinder, and it's all green screen. That thing's sweet.
Yep.
So they can make everything realistic. But yeah, so basically he just helps them out, and at the end, what the Mandalorian wants in return is the Mandalorian armor that the sheriff Cobb has.
Yep.
And that is actually Boba Fett's armor. So that is kind of the gist of the episode. Zach, do you want to start off with what's good, what's bad about this episode?
Good about this episode. I thought that it was a really good transition from season 1. I thought that, you cut back to the Mandalorian. He's looking for not only his people, but he's also still bringing little baby Yoda around. He's trying to find his people because he needs to find out where baby Yoda's at. So it's good. We see, he doesn't succeed right away. He goes, he meets someone who he thinks a Mandalorian, but they're not. And I think it was just kind of like it was a good bridge episode between season 1, season 2, and to kind of remind us of what happened at the end of season 1 where he was tasked with this. I think that it worked really well on that. I can't really say that there was too much of a bad in this episode for me. I thought it was really cool. It was a little bit disappointing to see, that it wasn't an actual Mandalorian. The Mandalorians are sweet, but overall, I think it was a really good episode, really good segue, and it was just really entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I feel there wasn't too much bad on this episode. I mean, it's Jon Favreau doing his thing. He's bringing us back in. He's bringing us. I mean, but adding like Mos Pelgo, he's bringing the Tusken Raiders. Like, and most people see Tusken Raiders as these savages, and we're seeing a whole different side of the Raiders here, where they work with the human and other alien species in and around Tatooine's major cities, if you want to say major city for Mos Pelgo. But like it just adds a lot more to the environment to Tatooine. Is all you see, typically, especially if you're maybe one of the older Star Wars fans, you see at 4, 5, and 6, all you see is the moisture farms and the dual suns. But now you get to see some of that wildlife, see more of the environment. But it's awesome because now you got Boba Fett, hinted in, and I think it does at the end of the episode. They do show somebody watching that they hint at as Boba Fett. and to incorporate a character like that, who's that's the Star Wars legend right there. Boba Fett's the bounty hunter. So I mean, it's or he's and yeah, when you think of Mandalorian, before this show, you thought of Boba Fett. Boba Fett was the image that you had in your head. So I mean, if not maybe Jango Fett, but I'd say majority of people were thinking Boba Fett. So that's really awesome that they start bringing these characters and start sewing them into the story and set it up. Um, Moving on to the next episode, which is chapter 10, The Passenger. If I may kick this one off, this is where the Mandalorian agrees to take the Frog Lady and her eggs to from Tatooine to Trask, which is a moon where her husband has to fertilize their eggs to continue their family line. Basic story. It's kind of like you could almost consider like almost a little fluff storyline. It's just pushing the exposition. It's just moving the story along. It's no big deal. It was really cool to see the X-Wings. Like I said, that was one real cool part. Seeing the X-Wings, I mean, I think the X-Wings are slowly have become my favorite starfighter in the entire thing because it's just really cool. And it kind of also, what it does is it rather shows you how the New Republic the government operates out in the Outer Rim here. Because when you really look at it, like they're almost like police officers. They're just chilling out there, oh, well, it's almost like, hey, can I get your driver's license, your insurance, and your proof of not proof of insurance, but your registration is almost how it was.
Yep.
So it's kind of interesting to see how they're more or less policing the Outer Rim rather than just being like general peacekeepers. But I mean, with this episode, I thought the planet was really cool. I thought, I don't
little icy area.
Yeah, I don't see where it says what it is, but I mean, I thought that the ice spiders was pretty cool.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just felt it was like it was a little dull. It's mostly just kind of actiony.
Yeah.
With most of the stuff, but I thought it moves the story along. It wasn't fantastic. It wasn't good. If I had to give it a rating, I know we weren't doing ratings, but it's probably a 6 episode. If I wouldn't go back to this episode just to watch it singularly, but I would definitely watch it again if I finally can get my girlfriend to watch this. So.
Yep. It seems pretty fair. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I really didn't care for the Frog Lady arc. I thought it was pretty boring in and of itself. Mainly because if you know that you're gonna be planting a hatch of eggs, why are you so far from your husband anyway? Yeah. That's kind of bad family planning. I don't know. Maybe family planning wasn't taught in the Frog's home world. I guess that's not emphasized. She knows that it's her last batch, but she doesn't know the timing of it. I feel like that to me that was just weird. Why are you so far away? You're gonna tell me, oh, it was work. Oh yeah, I don't believe that for a second. I did, like I said, I did not like the Frog Lady arc. I just thought it was weird. I thought Baby Yoda eating the eggs was weird, and it was just uncomfortable.
Well, Baby Yoda eating eggs almost got Baby Yoda canceled. Remember that? If you saw that, there were a lot of people that said that was horrible or it was
weird
cannibalism, but I don't even know.
It was weird.
I think we can move on from this episode. This episode just adds some vibes, but I mean. Then we jump into the, I guess, overall episode 11, but it's episode 3 of the season. That's chapter 11, The Heiress. And this season,
great episode.
This episode introduced a very important character, which is Bo-Katan. And
the best.
Now, for all of you, I mean, I mentioned in our last episode, but Bo-Katan is the sister of the queen / princess, whatever you want to call
Empress.
Her. Satine Empress. That's what it was. I kept saying queen or Empress.
I was just gonna kind of let you run with it.
Mandalore. I just dropped her name.
Satine, yeah.
And Satine, I'm not gonna go on too much, but Satine, she's a lover. She could have stolen Obi-Wan away from the Jedi. Or there's a lot to it. There's a lot to unpack there, but that's for a whole different thing. So if anybody ever wants to, you want to learn more about that, I can't remember what season of.
Just watch the Clone Wars. Watch the Clone Wars in general.
Through 7 seasons. It's
You'll get it.
Watch. It's awesome. It's a great show. I suggest you watch it. But Bo-Katan and a couple of her Mandalorian, I don't want to say sidekicks, I guess, but compatriots.
Mandalorian friends, buddies.
I think compatriots is good. I think they're like comrades, but they're not communists.
Best pals,
So but they are out there. They're out and about. They're doing their thing, and they end up running into the Mandalorian after he is attacked by a bunch of fishermen, who offer the help find the Mandalorians in the first place, but they end up tricking them because they want the Beskar,
Yep.
because everyone wants Beskar because it's shiny, I guess.
Love shiny.
But Bo-Katan and her compatriots end up helping the Mandalorian. They help save him and the child, who almost gets eaten by a fish monster creature, whatever you want to call it.
Yep.
And what ends up happening is they say, you know what, we can help you find a Jedi. We know a Jedi because Bo-Katan is very close to a young woman named Ahsoka Tano and Zach's fave, and,
Hell yeah.
or woman crush every day, and says, I can help you get to Ahsoka, but I need your help. So basically, the whole premise is she wants Moff Gideon, she wants the dark saber, which is the one and only Mandalorian Jedi's lightsaber.
Yep.
From, I think, the Old Republic. It could be High Republic era. I know it's like older, way older. It's before the wars started by Revan, but she said, I just need to steal this ship. The ship has information to find Gideon and the Darksaber, and also has weapons we want to use to retake Mandalore, which is still under Imperial Remnant control, I believe, at this point. So it's a lot to it. There's a lot to this episode. I think the premise initially, if you're not as like in tune, I guess, with the Mandalorian conflict, it's not as, it might just be a nice like, cool action episode. More Mandalorians, more action. You get the stormtroopers, dueling it out with them. But at the same time, there's a lot of like a deeper information once you kind of learn more about that. So I think pros. It really brings more lore to the Mandalorian stuff, and it sets up potential future plot points with, Din Djarin and Bo-Katan. Really cool to have them like take a starship. I mean, cons. I mean, I think some of the stormtroopers are just kind of goofy. I mean, I get that they're just supposed to be crappy, but like the stormtroopers, they have it's a good gaff where they.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
You know what I'm talking about?
They make a joke, I'm pretty sure.
We lock them in the cargo control area.
Yep.
And the guy's like, you lock them where? As the door opens and sucks all the stormtroopers out. So it's a funny gaff, but at the same time, it's like, at this point, you'd think that they'd wise up and get a little more serious. But I guess the cons is the continued joke that stormtroopers suck. But the pros, I guess, the stormtroopers sucking joke. It's kind of it's a middle ground subject.
Yeah.
But what about you?
So I really liked this episode. Once again, Frog Lady don't really care for. Don't. Yeah. Already mentioned. Glad that she's gone. I love that they bring in Bo-Katan. She's awesome. She's a badass. She's one of like the ideal Star Wars characters. She's out for herself, you think, in this crazy space world. But then you find out, she's still got a lot of her pride as a Mandalorian. She wants to retake her home planet. And I think that just bringing in those characters from the Clone Wars is awesome because it helps tie Din into all the lore of Star Wars. And I think that's one of the things that's just huge. And the fact that they mention that they know a Jedi. We get to hear about Ahsoka. The Jedi. Ahsoka. Ahsoka's just so cool. Bo-Katan's cool. And, you got to see her in, like, her OG Death Watch armor that she had when she first joined it up. Yeah. And it's cool. It's cool as hell.
The point too is this is where you distinguish the fact that Din Djarin was raised by the Watch, because he gets real pissed when they take off their helmets. He's like, "You're not Mandalorian. How dare you?" And she's like, "Oh, what are you talking about?" And the male Mandalorian looks over here and he's like, he's a child of the Watch, and Din Djarin's just so confused, like, what's that supposed to mean?
Yeah, what's the Watch?
He doesn't realize that, like, I feel it's one kind of, I guess you could almost call it a pro con of Din. And we'll talk about later in this episode, is Din Djarin is very, what's it called? Where it's just like...
Tunnel visioned.
Tunnel vision. Like, he doesn't know what's going on. Like, he's like a guy that's never it's like someone nowadays that doesn't have a Facebook or does never even open up the internet. Like, he just doesn't know what's going on. Because he doesn't know that his tribe was only a small tribe. Like, he wasn't he wasn't in the capital cities. He wasn't those people. He literally was just like, he was in like a cult, and he thought that was the Mandalorian way. Like, he's very, I think, tunnel vision. So I think that was just interesting. I feel like Din Djarin, although it's like it's almost like his environment develops him rather than him developing himself, which is a really interesting take on how to develop a character, in my opinion.
I agree.
So, All right, so we're gonna move on to chapter 12, the siege,
Yeah.
which is where, let me read the description
That's the
real
one.
quick.
He goes back to Navarro. We meet Kara and Grief again,
Yeah, Grief
and they go
Kargan,
destroy the
Karga.
one base of the
Yes,
Empire.
yes, yes, yes. And this is where you learn that Kara has become a
A marshal of the New Republic.
marshal of the New Republic. So she's gone back to being part of the New Republic after her heroics in the previous season. And Grief Kargan's really cleaned up the city. Everything's
Yep.
looking a lot better. The planet in general is getting a lot better because of the work they're doing. But they realize there's still an Imperial base on, and they got to clear it out still. And this episode is the premise is pretty damn short. It basically is Grief and Car like, you know what, this base is still there. It's causing us some, there's some issues being arising from it. There could have been experiments being done there. Let's go clear it out and check this thing out. So they go there, they check it out. They leave, destroy the base. It's a pretty and the really, excuse me. What they figure out is that, oh man, the child has a high M count, which is midichlorian count, which is the science they invented in the prequels for
Yep.
people who like science and stuff. So, so that's really all they find out, and they find out that Moff Gideon still alive, and Moff Gideon wants the child's blood. That's basically all that happens in this episode. So, I mean, pros. I think it's cool that Grief comes back. I think Grief was a real big. Well, he was a very big part of the first season.
Mhm.
Good character. I think it's great to see him again. And also it reintroduces Cara Dune to the rest of the season. She will be back for those who have watched.
Yep.
So that's awesome to reintroduce her. I really like her as a character. She was a great new character to the Star Wars universe. So I'm a big fan of Cara Dune. And I mean, outside of that, I mean, the cons is I feel like this episode is so forgettable. I mean,
Yep.
when we were reading through the list, I was like, "What is the siege about?" I can remember if you told me every episode, and you gave me like the first like little bit, I can tell you, okay, I know what this episode's about. I have a
Yep.
bad memory as is, but I was like, did I even watch this episode? I wake up Friday morning at 8 to watch this every week, and before I start work, and I'm just like, well, I'm just like sitting here, I'm like, did I even wake up that Friday? Because I can't even remember even watching
Yep.
this episode. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it just didn't really, for me, it didn't really help move the story too much along. We
yeah,
knew that Baby Yoda, Grogu, we knew he was powerful with the Force. I mean, this is no surprise. And they bring back the reveal that, the characters find out Moff Gideon's alive, which I guess is cool. But it's like, we already knew that. And I feel like maybe that's okay. I mean, we already knew that Moff Gideon was alive from the previous episode when they're
Well,
asking for
we
the dark
knew, the
saber.
audience knew, not the characters. I can't
So
remember the exact literary term for that.
yeah, so
Yeah,
yeah,
we knew, but they didn't.
just overall, it was cool, I guess, with the fighting. There was a lot of fighting, but overall, story wise, I feel like it didn't add a
They
whole
could have
lot.
chipped in 2 minutes somewhere else.
Yeah,
Um,
so I think that's good for that one. Yeah, so
yeah.
hop on to the next one.
So the next one is gonna be Chapter 13, The Jedi,
Yes.
which is where this is. I don't want to spoil Zach's choice for favorite episode, but this could be it. This could have been it. But this is where the Mandalorian travels to the city of Caladan on the planet Corvus, because he now knows the location of the Great Orange Jedi, Ahsoka Tano.
Hell yeah,
Ahsoka Tano is back, and she's played by Rosario Dawson, who does an excellent job. And
phenomenal,
I do want to put
phenomenal.
this out there. People were hating on Rosario Dawson for playing this role. She's like, oh, the actress, she's a little too old for Ahsoka.
Nope.
I'm like,
She played it.
Ahsoka's literally, and Rosario Dawson, because I know Ahsoka's, I think, species lives a little longer,
Mhm.
and I'm like, they literally match up in age. I'm like,
Yeah.
what the hell are you talking about? And she did a great job. She played
She
a
nailed
very
it.
serious, yet, almost like at times playful, especially when she's like conversing
Exactly.
with a child, like character.
Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, it
She
was-
looks Ahsoka, she acts Ahsoka.
Yeah.
I was digging it.
It felt like she was the same Ahsoka that we left in the last season of the Clone
Except
Wars.
far wiser. So
Yes,
so much far
exactly.
wiser, but still has that Ahsoka charm. So I dug it a lot. And basically in this episode, Mando has to find Ahsoka because this Imperial governess, or it was some clan. I can't remember if I think she's ex-Imperial, I think. But she's now like some governess of this city or planet, whatever she was. that character wasn't super memorable anyways. So, but basically, she's like, you know what, Mandalorian, I want you to go kill the Jedi. I can't do it, but I know Mandalorians are experts, which obviously are at killing Jedi. So they send her out, but really, double motive. He wants to find Ahsoka, and him and Ahsoka end up coming back. They end up, saving this village and inspiring the townsfolk to help them, and they end up killing this woman. And this is how the Mandalorian, or Mr. Din Djarin, also gets a Beskar spear, which is
It's cool.
pretty sweet.
It's so cool.
And, he uses frequently as we go into the season. But I think one awesome thing that this brings up, and I imagine this is going to be a tie-in to the Ahsoka TV show announced for 2021, but they bring up Thrawn. Now,
Yes.
I know Zach knows far more about Thrawn than I do because
He's awesome.
books, and I've recently picked up the books. I'm gonna start reading Star Wars books. I bought 3 of them. I said I'm gonna start reading. I want to get them done by the end of the month, and I really want to get into Thrawn because Thrawn is a very intriguing character who definitely
So cool.
needs to have his own stuff. But this is where Ahsoka. I think that where Ahsoka's path is probably gonna go. Is trying to search down Thrawn. But at the end of the episode, I know I kind of jumped off the point there.
You're good.
But I interjected on myself a little bit. But at the end of the episode, Ahsoka says, I can't train him. And Din Djarin obviously is not pleased because he finds this powerful Jedi, but she won't train him. And she says what he needs to do is go to this planet, and there's this like a sacred place for Jedi where Grogu, which we find out is his name. This is no more Baby Yodas anymore. He's now
Grogu.
He's now Grogu, and little Grogu is actually able to project himself through the Force and reach out to Jedi, in the episode, throughout the galaxy in order to chat with other Jedi. I guess it's like they're online.
Little Jedi Picto chat.
Little Jedi Picto chat going on. So. Pros of this episode, you start off. I remember who started off the last episode, but you go first. I feel like I talk too much, so you go ahead.
You're good. So the pros, obviously Ahsoka, just phenomenal, did a great job with the character, did the character justice, exactly what we love to see. And then the introduction of Thrawn, amazing as always. Thrawn's an absolute tactical genius, so it makes sense he wouldn't be able to be found easily. And then the Mandalorian, when Din first fights Ahsoka, I think that's awesome. Because you get to see the entirety of the Mandalorian's outfit and the weapons they're outfitted with has been specialized for killing Jedi. That's the whole point of them. That's why they got the flamethrowers. That's why they got this and that. It's all for that close range combat, so they can't let the Jedi close the distance. And with that, I also think
Beskar as well as like lightsabers. So.
Exactly, it's awesome. And then another thing that I think is really cool. When Ahsoka says that she won't train Grogu because he has too big of an attachment to Din, what this hints at is the fact that she remembers that Anakin's whole issue when they were first training was that his attachment to his mother was too good. There was too much there, and that's what caused him, those feelings caused him to turn to the dark side, which in reality I kind of think it was the Jedi Council being a bunch of dicks, but...
I mean, but
it is what it is.
Though, I feel Anakin, and we've discussed this before, outside of, YouTube and stuff. But
yeah.
It's interesting how, and all of them knew, and I think Mace Windu specifically was the one who knew it was never going to work.
Yeah.
Like this kid, you can't have feelings, you can't do this. And I think the problem was, and I know, it almost like, and this is another thing, this is me going off on like super tangents. I also feel like you can almost blame Obi-Wan to like a major extent because Obi-Wan was complacent with the Padme stuff. Like Obi-Wan is, especially in the Clone Wars, if you watch those later seasons, Obi-Wan knows.
Oh yeah, he definitely knows.
Obi-Wan knows everything. He may not know about the pregnancy, but he knows about everything else. And Obi-Wan almost lets his feelings. He does let his feelings for Anakin of like that brotherliness.
Yep.
He lets Anakin get off on it. When really Obi-Wan, what he should have done, initially is, he said, Anakin, you cannot do this. And, like, take it to the council and either boot Anakin or he needs to, him and Padme can't see each other. Which, I mean, that sucks. And that would and I mean, at the end of the day, that probably would have changed everything. But at the same time, I feel like that's a whole nother argument. I feel like there's too many tangents. Star Wars tangents.
Yeah, that was my whole thing. I just think that was a cool little nod to Anakin when she said that.
Yeah, so, and that's that bond between those two, so.
Yep.
Anyways, Also, if I've been saying Beskar, I sometimes say Beskar, I sometimes say Beskar, so I apologize.
Best
Anyway,
Scar's good.
let's hear my butchering of it. So the next episode is Chapter 14, The Tragedy, which is where they go to Thion, the planet that was mentioned in the last episode, where Grogu is able to reach out through the Force and talk to uh, other other Jedi. Now, in this episode, basically what happens is they get there, Grogu starts meditating, but as this is happening, stormtroopers and Moff Gideon's cruiser come into the atmosphere and they begin assaulting Din Djarin. But luckily, Boba Fett has also arrived with Fennec, who, if you remember Fennec, she was
Yeah.
when in the first season when there was that one like new bounty hunter guy, and he went after that Imperial assassin, and they killed her out in the middle of the desert. That was Fennec. He chopped in half. But actually, what happened is Boba Fett must have been it was following along this whole entire time, or he was in Tatooine, obviously, because I mean Boba Fett, that's basically his home at this point in his lifetime. But he finds Fennec. He somehow saves her, and so she's like life indebted to him. So she's like his personal assassin that travels with him. So they show up. Boba Fett wants his armor back, obviously, and Din Djarin is very hesitant. Well, I can't even say hesitant. He wasn't gonna give the armor back to Boba Fett. He's like,
Yep.
"You're not a Mandalorian. I don't believe you." And Boba Fett's like, there's proof in the armor. I mean, my coating is in there. He's like, all this is going on. But at the end of the day, Boba Fett gets the armor back prior to Moff Gideon blowing up the Razor Crest and destroying it. And they end up teaming up together after Grogu is kidnapped by the Dark Troopers and taken to Moff Gideon's ship. Uh, Basically, I mean, this episode, I mean, Boba Fett come back as soon as Boba Fett puts that armor on. I know people are like making, it's thick Boba Fett, he's put on some weight, but Boba Fett is, you remember, is a clone, and so I know that the clones, I know he's just a basic clone without the the fast growing,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, it's like Boba Fett's older, he's
Yeah,
gonna
he's
put on
getting
some
up there.
weight. He's not gonna be in the same shape, and with clones, I know. I mean, if you look at even like Rebels, I didn't watch Rebels, but that Rex, they all put on a lot of weight. It might just be a cloning thing where it might just be muscle. I don't know all the science behind it, but
Yeah, not much of a cloning expert.
yeah, me neither. I'm not a Kaminoan, but but this episode was just really cool because I mean, it introduces the Dark Troopers, which I think we called Death Troopers before. I mean, but I feel like most of that stuff could be is all relatively the same, anyways. I'm probably wrong, and someone will correct me eventually, but the Dark Trooper Gen 3s come in and they fly down and they steal Grogu, and you get to see Fennec, and you get to see the Slave One is back. Watching the Slave One flying was badass.
Yep.
Because I mean that's again everyone knows the Slave One. You see it, that's Boba Fett. So overall, the episode was so damn good. Just to have Boba Fett come back, tried and true through. Having Fennec come back is really cool. She at first you think in season 1 she's just some one and done. She's off the camera in 5 minutes, but it's good to see her character back in here. And I mean, cons. I feel like the episode, although it was short for a reason, I feel there just wasn't much to it outside of Grogu reached out to the Force. That was it.
Yeah. Yep. So. I can agree to that. Yeah, I think overall it was cool to see Mr. Fett come back. Real big fan of him. I liked, kind of shout out to the Tony Stark quote from the Spider-Man movie, if you're nothing without the suit, then you don't deserve it. He definitely proved that he was much more without the suit, that he's just overall awesome. It was really cool. I think that, one of the cons of this episode is we lost our Razor Crest. Watched it get blown to bits. That's always a heartbreaker. It's a cool ship, obviously.
Although, if I can interject, Zach, I'll be honest with you. It could be a pro. Because the Razor Crest's a piece of shit.
It's trash,
yeah. The Razor Crest is a dog. I'm not saying that the Razor Crest itself, with the design, everything shitty. Like it's iconic at this point.
It's just an old. It's an old one.
It's like it's an old piece of garbage. It's like your mom's 1999 Buick that got passed down from your grandpa. Your mom to you.
Exactly.
It's like you don't want that car anymore. And when it blows up, you're like, thank God. I don't care if I have to go get a 2006 Honda Accord. Anything's better than this piece of garbage. So I mean, I think this is I'm not talking from experience. Don't worry. I'm talking from another friend experience.
I believe you.
So if they ever watch this, they'll know.
But yeah. So overall, I think it was a good episode. I think it was entertaining. I think it helped with the plot. Obviously, Grogu getting kidnapped is kind of like the center point of the ending of the season. So
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good. So if you want to go ahead, jump into the next one.
Second to last, and that is the chapter 15, the believer. And in this one, and we forgot to mention in the previous one, or are we on the tragedy or are we on the believer? That's
We're on the believer.
yeah.
Yeah, we just
Okay,
discussed.
I'm sorry, I'm bouncing around. I don't think I said the title the last time, so I threw myself off. But
I
we'll
think
go
you
back in
mentioned it.
action. So in this one, and we forgot to mention in the last one, is that Miggs Mayfield, who's played by Bill Burr, the famous comedian, is brought as they mention him because they realize that as an ex-imperial, that Mr. Mayfield would be a great benefit in um, tracking down Moff Gideon's cruiser. So they go to the New Republic prison and they say, and Cara Dune pulls him out and says, "We need him. We have to transfer him to a different prison. He's coming with me." And of course they let him go because it's with Cara. But instead, actually, what they do is they take Mayfield and they say, "Hey, we'll let you go after this, but basically we need your help." Or I don't think they offer him freedom right away. But
No, not away.
But basically, they're like, "We need your help finding this cruiser. You're an ex-imperial. We need to get into one of these little data center, the data link ups, and we need to find this cruiser for us." And of course, Mayfield definitely doesn't really want to help them. But I mean, what other choice does he really have at this point? So they go to Morok, which is a secret mining hub for the Empire, and there basically Mayfield and Din Djarin, they hijack a transport carrying explosive materials, and basically if they drive too fast, the stuff explodes. If they get shot at, the stuff explodes. If it's too hot or cold, it explodes. Basically, the stuff is really volatile.
Yeah, just wants to
But
blow up.
but since the Empire isn't welcomed, on these more indigenous planets or more jungle-esque planets or tribal planets, whatever you want to call them, there's a bunch of pirates that start blowing up all the transports. So as they're driving along, Din and Mayfield, they see the first transport explode. And then the second, you hear the second transport, they're like screaming over the mic, they're freaking out, they explode. And so then it gets down to, I can't remember if there's another one or not, but then it gets down to the pirates, the next target is Din and Miggs. And basically they fight their way to the Imperial, basically these pirates, all the way to the Imperial mining facility. Stormtrooper Garrison comes out and protects them as they get the transport inside. And once they get inside, they end up having this confrontation with this Imperial officer who's like, really sussing them out. But then he's like, "Let's grab a drink." And they're like, "Oh, thank God." Because basically it's like they couldn't believe that anybody got those transports in. So they give him a drink.
That's good stuff.
And it turns out one of the officers that was at this facility was actually Miggs's previous commanding officer. And which leads to a confrontation after later on in the episode. But prior to that, Din goes up to the console because Mayfield won't go up to it because he doesn't want to be identified in front of that guy. So Din Djarin walks up and actually removes his helmet.
Yeah, that was sweet.
Out, which is pretty sweet. Like he breaks his own little code and takes the helmet off and does it. And as he does this, the officer approaches them. They sit down with the officer, and Mayfield actually starts going into like almost a rant about how his unit, like all these men he knew, were killed in this war.
Operation Cinder.
And Operation Cinder, and the guy's like, "Well, many men died, but it was worth it. It was for the Empire." And the guy's basically like, and Mayfield ends up getting so pissed
Love
he pops the guy right there at the table, and they basically have to shoot their way out of this facility. Obviously, they end up getting away. They have the coordinates, and they're ready to go rescue him. But beforehand, they let Mayfield go. They said, "Up," and Cara Dune looks at at Din Djarin. He says, "Oh, I think Mayfield died in the mining facility explosion." And Mayfield's like, "I'm free to go," and they're like, "Yeah, you're dead." And then he's like, "Okay," and he basically just walks off into the woods, and I'm sure it's not the last we'll see of him because obviously they brought him back for a reason this time, and I'm sure that won't be the last. But so I apologize for that long explanation if you had to sit through that. But good. I think this, I'm gonna spoil it myself, but this is probably my favorite episode. I liked having Mayfield back. You learn a lot more about him. He kind of opens up far more to the Mandalorian, especially when they're sitting in the cab of the transport vehicle. He's trying to get to know Din more, and Din, of course, is such a closed off person. But Mayfield basically just like self, shows more about himself, and you learn more about his service to the Empire and just the shit he had to go through. So I thought it was a really cool episode. It was definitely a filler episode. I will say that, which is a con. But this could have been outside of the next episode. This is probably my favorite episode just because it was a filler episode that was cool. And it added so much background to a cool character that we'd already been introduced to before. So,
Yep.
Zach, I will stop my rant and I will let you go in on it.
It's all good. So I actually really like this episode. Like, even though it was kind of filler, kind of plot driven, I think that it was amazing. I think that they did such a good job with. They kept the tension. They kept everything. They kept you in suspense. They kept you interested, and then the payoff was awesome. And it was awesome to see that. Remember, because Mayfield had to be the one to scan his face because he was Imperial, but then we got the fact that Din was also able to, which kind of hints at something related to him having some type of relation with the Imperials. I thought that was kind of neat.
I didn't think about that until now.
Yeah.
Kind of true because he got the plan. So
Exactly, and you needed to have. That's why they brought Mayfield. That was the entire point. It was because he could get him in there and he could scan it. But Din's also able to. So, but my favorite part of the episode, the speech the Mandalorian gives to Moff Gideon that mimics Moff Gideon's speech from season 1, where he says, "You have something I want. You may think you have some idea what you're in possession of, but you do not. Soon he will be back with me. He means more to me than you will ever know." Holy cow.
Gideon's face is just like...
Oh, God.
And that's one reason I really like Moff Gideon's character. And we'll talk
Moff Gideon's sweet.
Episode, is that Moff Gideon's not that like he can be stone faced, but when it's like when shit's hitting the fan, he'll be like, yeah, this is not looking good for me. So
it was so good.
It takes us into the best episode. And again,
yes, it was.
Like we said, our favorite episodes are not going to be was this episode, but we had to pick other ones because we can't have the same episode favorite, right? But this episode, in layman's terms, long story short, the team finds Gideon. They get on board the ship. There's some dark troopers. They deal with one of them. They launch him out into the space, and oh no, they get back on the ship. So that they're in the bridge. They have Moff Gideon. They fought their way through the ship. All of a sudden, a lone, red-marked X-wing fighter flies past the bridge, so casually, as if it was just nothing.
Only one. Like, oh great, we're saved.
Like what? And Cardell laughs like, "Ha, one X-wing. Like how's that gonna help?" He lands in the bay. They request, "Who is this? Who's this in this X-wing?" And out pops a cloaked figure, and you think to yourself, who could this be? You see
I wonder.
One normal hand, and you see one gloved hand, and
the gloved hand gave it away.
Lightsaber ignites, and you're like, "Holy fucking shit! It's Luke Skywalker." Luke Skywalker walks effortlessly, using the Force in his saber. He executes. I mean, it was execution. Every single Dark Trooper, and then walks into the bridge, mighty and wise as you assume Luke Skywalker would be at this point. This is in between that, episode 4, 5, and 6 that, more childish, maybe less disciplined Luke.
Mm-hmm.
And that cynical old man we see in the new movies, I guess those three that people, I guess,
he comes in
maybe before, but
he comes in with the exaggerated swagger of a Jedi Master.
I mean, but when Luke Skywalker struts through that door, it blows your mind. You're just like, holy, like when you
it's
think,
beautiful.
I, as a Star Wars nerd, when you think about this scene, like you think, oh, Mandalorian's got a big budget, but you're like, is it big budget enough to have Luke Skywalker strut it? And apparently the answer is yes, because Luke Skywalker struts in there and says, "I've come for the child."
So cool.
And then you realize, holy crap, Grogu communicated with Luke Skywalker, and the season ends with R2-D2, Luke Skywalker, and Grogu in the elevator, and the door closes, and as soon as it hits end, black. It's done.
So
Grogu is in the hands of the Grand Master Jedi,
Luke
Skywalker. Like, that episode was, I've watched that scene so many times. I'm just like, it's amazing to watch Luke just go in and
pop off.
The use of the Force, especially the special effects now.
Oh, it's sweet. When he crushed the Dark Trooper.
And the best part is, you think like, you don't need him jumping around and doing crazy stuff. It's just he's so fluid.
Yep.
How how he's perfected the Force. You can see that perfection in Luke Skywalker at this point. Like this is peak Skywalker. So it's like, it's so cool. And again, I'll let you talk, Zach. But I want to make the one connection that I talked about that I saw on TikTok the one time. Is there is a point in one of the newer movies that no one cares about, and it's Luke and Leia training, and basically they both sense something through the Force. And I want to say that Leia does say, "Oh, did you feel that?" or something like that. And they feel this disturbance or this call through the Force. And what a lot of people are like, I guess, not prophesizing, but they're the conspiracy theory is at that point in time, that is when Grogu is reaching through the Force out to Luke Skywalker. And I was like, if John Favreau came out tomorrow and said, "Yep, that's it," he made that movie 10 times better because now Grogu's somehow in that movie. You know what I mean? And it's like, it's just a really cool theory to think about, especially to make one of those N3 movies better. I mean, anything will make them better.
That's true.
Cherry on top, but I mean, is there any bad parts about this episode? Zach? How about that? I don't even want to hear any good things because we already know.
No, yeah,
is there any bad parts of this movie?
I don't think there's really any bad things, and I don't want to get too in detail because we have already done a full video on this episode. Make sure to check that out below. But yeah, I wouldn't say that there was any part in this episode where I wasn't super excited, where I didn't have goosebumps. I said before, probably one of my favorite Star Wars just pieces of media ever. It was so good.
I mean, it's an iconic moment now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost similar, and Rogue One did it too. The moment it almost mirrored kind of in a similar. And
When
Rogue
you see
One,
Darth
Vader breaks through the door, and the lightsaber. His lightsaber just slowly, I would say erects, but that's not the best word for it. But
ooh, yikes! Yikes!
Ignites, and he ends up just going through all those rebel soldiers before the Tantive 4 takes off.
Yep.
It's just like to have Luke Skywalker go through and just destroy. The closest they came to beating Luke Skywalker is when that one Dark Trooper grabs his shoulder and Luke just turns around and just annihilates him right then and there. Just not one stroke, and that was it.
So good.
It was like a painter. It's like Picasso with the lightsaber. It was incredible. And I guess one more thing to throw out there is it does, we do have the dark saber conflict now because now Din has officially won. That, and I guess that's the claim to the throne of Mandalore, which was Bo-Katan's original goal. So I mean,
which doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Didn't you send me that on Instagram?
And actually, another TikTok has been. I'll be honest with all of you watching. If you can get enveloped in Star Wars TikTok, there's a lot of good conspiracies. That's where I found, like I mentioned, the reaching out to the Force one with Luke Skywalker. Another good one is that in Star Wars Rebels, apparently as well, the female Mandalorian that travels with that group of whatever, I don't know that show at all. She has the Darksaber and just passes it on to Bo-Katan, who's actually in that show as well.
Yep.
And Bo-Katan just accepts it.
She's like, that's neat.
Bo-Katan just cannot accept it. So I'm really curious to see, what is there like a rule to it? Maybe it's like if an Imperial has it, maybe there's something. But
yeah,
I feel this is the one time Jon Favreau's, if you can even call it this, a mistake.
Yeah, I could see that.
This one, I would definitely probably I'd rather take Jon Favreau's version over Rebels. But
Rebels, yeah.
At the same time, who knows?
Yep.
We'll cover that in the future. Maybe they might put something out. Maybe Jon Favreau will be like, "Yo, I made a goof. It's
Oopsies."
Whatever. We'll explain it next season around, but yeah. So going through the season, Zach. I mean, obviously we both had a favorite episode, but what is? And I know I spoiled it, but what episode do you consider the best and the worst? Give me like a quick 2 minutes on them.
All right, so best for me, not including the last one, obviously, I think was the Jedi. Ahsoka's been one of my favorite characters since Clone Wars. She's been one of my favorite characters for years. I just think she's all around awesome. She's one of my favorite Jedi. She gets a lot of screen time in Clone Wars. You learn a lot about her character. She's just a lot of fun. And like I said, they mentioned Thrawn, which ties in the whole Thrawn narrative. And Thrawn is just super interesting as a character. He's a tactical genius. He's just super entertaining to, like, in the books and everything. He's super interesting to read about and everything. I thought that was just a great episode. I just thought the build up for it was well deserved. I thought that the hype really lived up to it. So definitely gonna say the Jedi was my favorite one. Least favorite, I think this kind of is already evident in the earlier discussion. The Passenger, it just felt very unnecessary. Yeah, they took her to a planet and she knew where Mandalorians were. That's cool, but maybe next time you plan your egg birthing session when you're at your home world. That probably would work a little bit better than, I don't know, giving birth on some random ass world how long away. What? Like, what is that? You had to...
Are you gonna write a parenting book now based on Star Wars?
Yeah, how to not be a dumb frog chick. Step 1, give birth next to your husband probably so he can fertilize the eggs. Don't give birth on some random world where, you know...
Planned.
How?
I don't know.
You're gonna say she was just sitting there one day, she's like, ooh, my stomach hurts, and then she's like, ooh, that's a lot of eggs. Ooh, I goofed.
I don't know the anatomy.
I goofed up. Yeah, I don't understand their anatomy either, but yeah, I really didn't like that episode. I thought that was super boring.
I'm gonna have to stop your hate train on Frog Lady. I think I'm gonna talk now.
Wait, one sec. Before I finish this.
Okay. I want your
on the Wikipedia, the lowest percentage of positive reviews was episode 2, the Frog Lady one.
Really?
Just wanted to say that out.
Where is that on?
Scroll down towards the bottom. It's right above the sources. Surprisingly enough, the second lowest percentage of positive reviews is episode 7. That actually surprises me. But go ahead. Break it down. What's your favorite? What's your least favorite?
Okay. My favorite, like I had hinted at earlier, is definitely going to be, I got to scroll down to the name again, is The Believer, which is actually both written and directed by, I'm going to butcher this guy's name, but Rick Famuyiwa, he's a Nigerian director, and so because it was written and directed by this guy, I feel like if most people who've watched the show, you can tell the vibe is a little different than the other episodes, and as I mentioned, I definitely feel like this could be considered a filler episode, but it was one of those episodes that it just brought out, especially in Mayfield, it brought out this character who, we thought was tossed into prison, he's gone forever. It brought him back in. Another good performance by Bill Burr. The Mandalorian. It helped develop the Din Djarin as well. I mean, he took off the mask. It reveals, like you had mentioned, it reveals like, well, what is Din Djarin's association with the Empire? Obviously.
Yep.
It just brings, continues to show, the teamwork that's being built between, Boba Fett, and Din Djarin. And it's just overall a good episode. I think it was just an interesting little tale. It also brings up, Operation Cinder. It kind of brings back some of the Star Wars history. So maybe people who have, read about that before. I don't remember I'm not sure if that was something that was made for this episode or if that was something prior. I had not heard of Operation Cinder prior to the episode. But it brings back some of the history and kind of shows you how bad the Empire really was. And how, the Empire really didn't give a shit about their own people, about other people, and how tyrannical of a government that really was. So I think all around it was just a good episode. And my least favorite episode was the one I could simply not remember, and that is The Siege, because honestly, they go back, we found a factory, Moff Gideon's alive. They couldn't have figured that out any other way. I mean, honestly, you know how they could have figured it out? Moff Gideon comes and kidnaps the Grogu.
Actually, fun fact.
Wait, what?
I just want to point out one thing here. In the episode beforehand, we already find out Moff Gideon's alive when Bo-Katan asks the guy where he's at, and he says, "Well, if you already know, then you're most likely dead." Blah blah blah. So we already know that he's alive. The Mando knows he's alive as well.
True. Well, I think Bo-Katan knows. I don't remember if she really hints at that. I mean, but even there she could have been like, "I'm still on Gideon," and the Din could have been like, no, I saw him die in Tatooine or wherever, and they would be like, no, he's not. He's still out there, and then it could have been confirmed by him showing up and kidnapping the child. They could have literally cut this whole episode out. Because what's the other thing? Oh, they need his blood. Oh, he has a high Metachlorian count.
Surprise.
Okay, Phantom Menace. I don't really care that much about the midichlorian count. Really, I think they imply that he's gonna be powerful because he is of Yoda species.
Yeah.
Yoda species is known to be incredibly powerful with the Force. It's similar with the Sith. The Sith species is known to be incredibly powerful with the dark side of the Force.
Pretty sure they
Yoda's
retconned.
almost kind of the adverse, far more,
Yep.
secluded and.
I'm pretty sure they retconned the Sith species.
What?
Pretty sure that the Sith species was retconned.
I don't know what that means. But...
It's no longer canon.
Anything in Legends is not.
Yeah.
Anymore. But I'm still reading the Legends books, and in my mind,
Yep.
it still makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, but okay, so let's just go back.
I'm not gonna let Mickey Mouse tell me what can and cannot be canon.
But yeah.
Let's be honest. George Lucas's mind, if George Lucas still thinks that it's canon,
I'm cool with it.
I'm following the man who thunk it into the universe. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna be that person, but yeah. So I mean, that is. I guess
that's the overview.
Review. I mean, I feel like going forward, Zach, I think we're definitely gonna have to see. I think we're gonna see, Mando and Bo-Katan, because he had mentioned it in some of the episodes or one of the episodes. I can't recall which.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're gonna go to Mandalore. I don't know if I see Luke Skywalker and Grogu reappearing.
Probably not.
Super, maybe just like, Grogu reaches out to the Force and like touches Din or something. I mean, potentially something like that. But I don't see Baby. I'm gonna say Baby Yoda. I'm not a cash. I don't see, Grogu. I don't see Grogu, appearing again. But I definitely see more Cara done. I definitely see probably some more X-wings. You definitely see more Bo-Katan.
Yep.
The conflict of the Darksaber. I think that's where it's gonna go. It's got to go toward Mandalore, and I definitely see far more development or more of a progressive Din Djarin going forward.
I agree.
He's quite the traditionalist. Even to the end of 2, he's pretty traditionalist still. So, what do you think?
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's gonna go in that same direction. Not much additional quality things to add. I have the same. I feel like we have the same thoughts on that.
Yeah.
So
as long as Jon Favreau is in charge and Kathleen Kennedy keeps her, forces female grubby little hands away from Star Wars, it will be safe, and I think everything will be fine. I think we'll all be smiling at the end of season 3.
Yep.
One thing I will mention though, is this is just as one wrapping up point, is even let's say tomorrow. Kathleen Kennedy says, "You know what, Jon Favreau, you did such a great job. I'm firing you. I'm not letting you upset my 3 movies. How could you?" She fires them. They can The Mandalorian. It ends up.
It's fine.
It wraps up.
Yeah,
Season
it's
2
good.
Wraps it up. It'd be a damn shame if they did, and I think Disney would regret it. I don't think they're not going to. They can milk Baby Yoda to the day that Disney's a pile of rubble after the 3rd nuclear holocaust of this planet.
Yep.
But I mean, it's I think it was good. It was good. It would wrap up, but yeah. So I guess that's my final thought on the season. Zach, any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up?
No. I think it was a good season. I think it was pretty entertaining for the most part. Couple, episodes here or there that weren't too great, but overall, I think it was pretty good, pretty entertaining. Yeah. Looking forward to the next one.
So yes, I will wrapping this up. We'd like to thank everyone for listening. This episode's a little longer just because we want to do the whole season review rather than a quick episode.
Yep.
Timestamps will be below. If maybe you just want to touch on a couple episodes,
yep.
Want to watch the whole thing through. Here are some of our thoughts on the various different things in the Star Wars universe pertaining to The Mandalorian Season 2.
Yep. I also think if you guys want, leave your thoughts and whatnot below in the comments. I'd like to hear some other people's opinions on, maybe you disagree with our best and worst things. I just want to hear some people's opinions.
And as I mentioned, get on TikTok. Yeah, I know it's a Chinese front for stealing Americans' information, but let me tell you, what the information I learned about Star Wars, I think outweighs the social security number that the Chinese get from me. So
perfect.
We appreciate everyone listening. Bounty Cast Episode 3 will most likely, I think we're going to be covering the new projects that will be coming up in 2021, kind of going through the different themes and the different, kind of art styles and such that are going to be covered in that. And we appreciate you listening. Like, comment, subscribe. As Zach mentioned, leave a comment, and we look forward to having you return to the galaxy with us once again in the next episode.